Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply. In this video is to bring you a closer look at the Richelieu. This is their part number 1102SNETL0BC. This is a keyed lever lock is what it is. And this video is really going to serve as a visual tour of the item, a slight dimensional tour of the item as well. We're going to go over what it is. We're going to look at the installation instructions, make sure there's nothing wacky going on that we're not expecting to find with a lock like this. The name Richelieu is synonymous with a epic amount of different types of builders hardware. Everything from cabinet hardware to timbre, lift-up timbre board kits, to the hardware that you need to take a ladder and slide it along in a library, all that kind of stuff. There's a link below this video to where you can review the catalog, but for right now let's focus on this keyed entrance lock. This is what they call a wave lever. That's just going to be what it's called. The two pieces will easily separate, so let's look at the interior side first, just for the sake of taking a look at the lever itself and some basic dimensional properties. Let's get into that now. By the way, this is in a satin nickel finish. I wanted to be sure. I knew what it looked like, but wasn't sure what they called it. The diameter of the rose, 2.5 inch, maybe 2 9/16. The projection of the trim off the face of the door, that'd be considered about 2 3/4 inch, let's say. The length of the lever from the center line, about 4 1/4. So when you add 1 1/4 inch, you're about 5.5 inch. From the tip of the lever here all the way to the outside of the rose. This is what's called a tubular lock, and that is because this hardware is going to be something that will, the spindle apparatus will be something that will go through the latch bolt, as seen here. Okay. This is an entrance function, okay, meaning you have the key, and actually 3 keys are included, which is not uncommon to have more than 2. So 3 keys are included, at least with this. It's not indicated that 3 or 2 are included, but nonetheless this lock has 3. This is in a quick-set type keyway, a standard quick-set keyway. The entrance function operation is actually more like a classroom. It'd be better to call it that. The lever is locked. You can turn that up, enter, retract the key, and then it's still unlocked unless you went all the way back and locked it, then pulled the key out, and now it's locked. So it'd be more appropriate to say that this is a classroom because you can leave it unlocked or leave it locked, is how that works. This is a handed lock. This is a left hand. And the handing is defined as the when you're looking at the lock from the exterior, the keyed side, the hinges would be on the left, and this lock would swing this way. Okay, swing out this way, or in, I should say, in this way, left hand. From your perspective, the hinges are over here, and it would swing in this way. Okay, from your perspective. Nice quality lock. Certainly for the cost, I wouldn't disqualify it for any reason in particular from being used. Okay, you can set that in a locked position. You can set it in an unlocked position. The disadvantage, of course, of this lock is that you need to unlock the turn button before you can exit in order to get out, naturally. Not a big fan of that sort of operation. Let's take a look. Now, looking closer at the latch bolt, this latch bolt can be installed in either 2 3/8 or 2 3/4 sort of orientation. And the way that works is that the spindle is going to pass through this hub. All the way down, just like that. Okay. And this will be considered a latch bolt that you can set in a different set of operations. We'll talk, or a different mode. We'll talk about that. Just want to demonstrate the fact that it works. Okay. Now, more specifically about this latch bolt. Okay, so all it's going to be is just literally pulling that back and forth to achieve your 2 3/8 or your 2 3/4. Okay, 2 3/8, the posts, the post holes, the posts for the bolts are going to go through these two holes here and here. And obviously here and here is where they'll go. Okay, you'll be able to run this as a drive-in style latch, should you want, or you're just going to compress that lock body right over the face of the latch bolt, just like that. Okay. If it included, it does not include a radiused corner, so you're stuck with a square corner on that latch face. Not a problem. You will get a full lip strike that will have a radiused corner that's 2 3/4 inch tall. Pardon me, 2 1/4 inch tall. I said that wrong. Overall width about 1 3/4 inches. From the center line of the screw hole to the edge of the lip, which is really how strikes are measured, it's about 1 1/4 inches. It will include a dust box that will mount right behind to close off the installation nice and cleanly. You're going to get a total of 6 screws. You're going to need the 2 long ones that are going to be to hold the lock together. And then you're going to need the 4 short ones, 2 for the latch, 2 for the strike. Okay. Now, let's get into the installation instructions next. And they are all included with the hardware itself, naturally. There is a paper template that we'll go over in a moment. And then there are actually instructions as to how to re-key the cylinder, which would be nothing that you should involve yourself in whatsoever, unless you are someone who makes a living installing lock sets and pinning them like a locksmith. You would avoid that altogether. Now let's start to tackle the installation instructions. So you're looking at, first of all, the latch bolt. They're basically showing you how to set it into the 2 3/8 or 2 3/4 position, and also talking about how you're going to manipulate the latch face. Okay, you'll rotate that there and pull it out, is how that's just simply going to work. Okay, we've discussed that. Defining that part is really what's happening there. Then prepping the door for the template that is included. You can set your 2 3/8 or your 2 3/4 back set based on what's indicated right there. You're literally going to fold this over along that line, depending on how you're installing it. And the center line, these here, will be based on the thickness of the door. So what you can do is tape that down to the edge of the door, mark the appropriate hole in the face of the door, but the appropriate center of the door on the edge or the style of the door, dependent on the thickness, because that's going to center it exactly where you will need it to be. Strangely enough, they don't give 1 3/4 inches, which is, Richelieu being a Canadian company, I certainly understand it being in the metric system. So you're going to want to locate the edge prep in the center of the door, and you may want to measure it. If it's 1 3/4 inches, it may not actually be 1.75. It might actually be 1.7, 1.71, 1.69. I suppose you could cheat that a little bit if you wanted. When you're marking the face of the door itself, if you're not using the template, be mindful of the fact that if your door is beveled, taking the distance from the small edge of the door, from the high edge of the door, to the center of that hole is not actually the definition of the back set, because it's measured from the center of the thickness of the door, meaning if you're not using the paper template, you'll have to compensate a little bit if you're measuring it on the inside, or what would be the high side of the door, and going maybe to 2 13/16 for that dimension, because you're measuring actually more of the door is how you would probably do that. Okay. Looking at step 2, marking the door as we've discussed, drilling the holes. Certainly, I see the, looks like they're trying to show us, I think, a multi-spur bit. I like a hole saw when drilling through the door. Those make a nice clean hole. When the arbor breaches the other side, I can stop, pull my tool out, remove any wood that's compacted inside of there, like the door core, come to the other side, and then finish the hole. 1 inch in the edge of the door straight down through would be the second hole that you would drill. A fly bit's pretty good for that. Very cheap. You want the ones with the cutters on the outside so that it will score the outside of the prep as you start to drill, so that you're not trying to evacuate a lot of wood that's not been scored already. Obviously, marking and chiseling the 2 1/4 inch. We've not given you that dimension. The 2 1/4 inch tall by 1 inch wide faceplate. If you're using a drive-in, well, then you're done. You're just going to remove that faceplate, and you're going to push the whole latch bolt assembly right on in. Once the latch is secured to the edge of the door, you're going to move on to installing the strike, marking it, chiseling it, mortising for it, etc. Step 6 and 7, the outside goes in first once the latch bolt is installed, and you're going to want to test it for proper operation right there, just to make sure the latch is retracting properly. Any sort of binding that occurs immediately, mitigate that problem. If the hole's not been drilled straight, like from the edge of the door, or the piece is too tight and compacted on the inside, you'll want to mitigate that. Then your interior trim will come in. Generally what happens is you'll get to that point where it doesn't go any further, and rotating that inside knob is what you'll be able to do to be able to get the rest of the lock put down onto the assembly. There we go, sorry. So just rotating that down will get you into a proper working condition. Make sure everything still works nice. Get the 2 screws put in, don't over tighten them. It's just going to make the lock not work properly. Hand tight, test the operation fully. Make sure your keys work. There is one tool that is here which you ought not need, but this little tool is what would allow you to remove the exterior lever should you need to get access to that cylinder, and only a locksmith would really do that, or someone who can rekey cylinders at least. Page 2 of all of it is apparently in French. Yes, I believe. Sure, certainly. Now you're going to get into the how to change the cylinder, and then the last page there is just what the template looks like. Now the balance of the extended description of this Richelieu lock give you a link to the product brochure, which is awfully handy because that will allow you to review all of their residential locks from this company. And I would not really hesitate to use their products, keeping in mind that it's residential, it's grade 3 quality, which means it's standard duty residential. Really not something that you'd use in a commercial setting as a general rule. But I can tell you that they have good quality fit and finish for an imported lock, and don't have any experience where I would specifically tell you not to use their hardware at all. I just don't have a lot of experience having used their residential locks, since imported grade 3 locks are, there's endless places to purchase the material from, and really what a company like Richelieu would then do when they import locks is you're not buying the lock as much as you're buying the service and the people behind the product, and of course the quality of the item as well. Finally, there's a link below this video to the manufacturer's page now, where you can pull up not only all of the Richelieu products that we sell, but of course a link to the manufacturer's website, as well as a link to the full product catalog. If you have any questions on the Richelieu, their wave lever keyed entrance left hand, part number 1102SNETL0BC, or any other Richelieu product, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you.